My name's Elliot. I'm 34 and I've always been the one who held the glue but never got a magnet on the fridge. Not the favorite, not the screw-up. Just there, reliable. I showed up, paid on time, remembered birthdays. I didn't demand attention and I never missed a deadline. Not at work, not with family, not even with things. No one noticed, like replacing the smoke detectors in my parents' house. I work in corporate accounting. Live alone, I drink 1 black coffee in the morning and I floss every night. My life is neat, boring, and invisible. My family, though, the opposite loud. Dramatic, full of spontaneous group hugs and carefully staged chaos, Instagram perfect on the outside, emotionally bankrupt on the inside. Growing up, my younger brother Darren was the star of the show. He could charm the pants off a mannequin mess, everything up, and still get a standing ovation. Missed curfews, failed classes, quitting jobs, he'd always find a way to land in someone else's safety net. Usually mine. My parents worshipped him like he was the second coming of something brilliant and misunderstood. I was the financial support character in Darren's biopic, quiet, stable, replaceable. But I kept showing up. Holidays, emergencies, mortgage help, always with my wallet and a well-timed sure I can handle it. I told myself it was fine. That's what family does. Then last October, I got a call from Mom. "Elliot, sweetheart." She sang down the line like she was calling from a 1950s sitcom. "Darren and Jess are engaged. Isn't that wonderful?" Jess was his girlfriend of like 3 months, but whatever. We're planning a beautiful dinner at that rooftop place downtown View, you know the one. It's a bit pricey, so we were hoping only if you can, of course you might help us hold the reservation. Translation book it, pay the deposit, and don't expect a refund, I sighed. Of course I said yes. I booked it. Private space, floral centerpieces, custom champagne flutes with their initials. I even sent the florist a Pinterest board Jess had posted. Call it dumb hope, but maybe just this once I'd be more than the guy who shows up early to carry boxes. The night came, I wore a suit, pressed shirt, pocket square, a gift-wrapped bottle of champagne. I got there at 6:59 on the dot. When I walked up to the rooftop, the hostess led me through the crowd to the private section jazz band playing Skyline glittering. The whole thing looked like a rom-com scene. I smiled, until I saw where they'd seated me. There, at a side table next to the trash bin, no less, was a folding chair with my name scribbled on a napkin. And Darren. He barely looked up from his cocktail. "Oh, hey," he said, nodding like I was the Uber Eats guy. "Glad you could make it." I froze. Then, like it was some hilarious joke, he gestured at the family table. "This one's for close family only," he added as if that made sense. I laughed, awkwardly, waiting for someone to chime in. For Mom to jump in and say, "Don't be silly. Of course you're with us." But she just gave me that tight-lipped Botox smile she wears when she wants to stay neutral and still be liked. Jess didn't even look up. So I walked to the folding chair and sat down. Didn't take off my coat, just placed the gift by my feet and waited for the night to be over. For the next 2 hours, I watched them toast, laugh, and pose for photos. I sipped water. Never got a menu. No one asked if I wanted a drink. When dessert came, a waiter brought out this towering gold-flecked monstrosity of a cake. Darren gave a speech about how everyone here means the world to us. I was invisible. Then the bill came. I watched the waiter walk to the main table with the little black folder. Then stop. His eyes flicked toward me. "Excuse me, sir," he said quietly. "The total for the event is 3,280 yen. Would you like me to use the card on file?" I stared at him, then at my brother, who without missing a beat said, "Yeah, Elliot's got it." Something broke. I stood up, Comslow looked around. "Not my table?" I said, voice loud enough to cut through the jazz. I was told this table's for family only. Silence. You could feel the air suck out of the room. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Jess's dad looked confused. Even the waiter flinched. "Sir, the waiter said you did make the reservation." I nodded. I did, and I paid the deposit. But I wasn't part of their party. I was seated by the trash can, so I'll just cover my water. I picked up my coat. Nodded once. "Hope you all have a wonderful evening." Then I left. Didn't even take the elevator. Took the stairs. Each step felt like a drum beat. A weird, angry kind of freedom. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. Outside, I stood under the streetlight, cool breeze in my face, champagne still in my hand unopened, and then my phone buzzed. Text from Darren. Seriously, dude, you couldn't just pay and talk to me later. Then one from Mom. You embarrassed us in front of Jess's family. Was that the goal? And then a call, unknown number. I picked up. Hi, a woman said softly, it's Jess. I blinked, okay. I just wanted to ask, did you really pay for all of it? The venue? The deposit, everything. I paused. Yes. She went quiet. Then they told my dad you offered to, that it was your idea. I laughed bitter. I never offered? They asked, I said yes. Big difference. Silence again. My dad's not happy, she said. He said if this is how your family treats their own, he's not sure what I'm marrying into. I didn't respond. Because honestly, I wasn't sure either. After I hung up with Jess, I just stood there for a while. Rooftop behind me, empty street ahead. And this ridiculous bottle of champagne in my hand like a prop from someone else's party. I didn't go home right away. Just walked. No destination. Just walked. Through side streets and across intersections like I was trying to leave behind. Not just the restaurant, but every version of myself that ever thought being quiet meant being respected. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was past midnight. I kicked off my shoes, dropped the champagne on the counter, and sat on the floor of my living room. Still in my suit, still in disbelief. I should have expected it, right? I mean, it wasn't the first time, but this time was different. Not because it hurt more, but because it finally felt loud enough to listen to. Then came the messages. Group chat lit up around 8 a.m. the next morning. You know the one fam with the same reused memes and birthday reminders? The one where I was always looped in, but never really included. Mom Elliot, we need to talk. Please call me. Darren. You humiliated me in front of Jess's whole family. You could have just handled it differently. Dad. Let's not blow this up more than it already is. Just call your brother and apologize. Apologize. That word made me laugh out loud, bitter and sharp. They treated me like a footnote at a party I paid for, and I'm the one who should be sorry. I didn't reply. Just let the texts sit there like unanswered voicemails from a life I was done subscribing to. Then came the fallout. And oh boy, it was delicious. Apparently, Jess's dad wasn't the type to let things slide. I got the full scoop from Mark Darren's college friend who had always been halfway decent to me. He texted me that afternoon. Bro, Jess's dad is pissed. Said your family made him look like a fool. Turns out, Mr. Carmichael, aka Jess's dad, had gone all in on this dinner. Paid for custom invites coordinated with the florist, even booked a string quartet for the reception next month. But once he found out I had funded the engagement dinner, the one where I was sat like a leftover, he went ballistic. Told Jess, flat out, if they humiliate him, what happens to you once you're married in? And just like that, the wedding was on pause. Pinterest boards gone venue, deposits canceled. Darren moved back home temporarily, which is code for indefinitely. My phone kept buzzing. More group messages, more guilt trips, more classic mom tactics. We didn't mean for it to come across that way. You misunderstood. Let's just move forward. Nowhere in those texts was the word sorry. Not once. Just avoidance wrapped in passive-aggressive bows. So I ignored them. Then came the email. A 5-paragraph italicized bullet-pointed apology from Mom's subject line, just one word. Please. She didn't even try to deny what happened. She spun it instead, said things like, "You've always been so strong, Elliot. We didn't realize you felt left out. We've leaned on you because you've always been so dependable. Let's not let one dinner undo a lifetime of family bonds." A lifetime of bonds, that line stopped me. What bonds? The time I canceled my Spain trip because Dad needed help paying hospital bills. The Christmas I spent driving 2 hours in the snow just to bring gifts because Darren forgot. The car loan I co-signed and never got back. Because if that's the bond, they didn't build it, I did. Quietly, tirelessly, alone. I didn't respond. 2 days later, my phone rang again. It was Aunt Lorna, Mom's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years. She was the no-nonsense one. A lawyer, sharp tongue, sharper eyes. Elliot, she said I heard about the dinner. Of course she did. I'm not calling to fix anything, she continued. I just want to say, good about damn time. That caught me off guard. She sighed. Your parents have leaned on you like scaffolding. Darren walks through life like there's always a net waiting because there always has been, usually one you built. Thanks, I said quietly. She wasn't done. Your mom called me yesterday, asked me to talk you down. I raised an eyebrow and I told her you didn't need talking down, you needed space, and maybe they needed to learn how to function without you holding up the walls. For the first time in my life, someone in the family didn't try to guilt me. She saw it, actually saw it. And then came Darren's next text. Darren bro, Jess's dad, canceled the venue. Said our values don't align. Fix this. Darren, come on man, just help me smooth this over. I stared at the screen. Fix this. As if I hadn't spent 3 decades doing just that. So I finally did fix something. Not for him, for me. Remember that joint account Darren opened just for a couple months while he was unemployed? Yeah, still had my name on it, still had his gym charges, Spotify a few $100. So I logged in, transferred the money to a new savings account mine. Then I closed the joint account entirely. The next morning, Darren called me 4 times in a row. I picked up on the 5th. His voice, full panic. Dude, what the hell? I tried to pay for dinner with Jess last night, card bounced. It says the account doesn't exist. I know, I said. You closed it. I did. You can't just... I can... And I did. You said I wasn't family, remember? That table was for family only. He stuttered, then tried to switch tactics. You're just jealous. Admit it. You hate that I get more attention. You've always hated it. I laughed. Oh, Darren, you still think this is about attention? Silence. Then I said, ask Mom to co-sign for you again. Or maybe Jess's dad can teach you how to open your own account. Then I hung up. That night I got an email. Not from Mom, not from Darren. From Jess. Subject, we need to talk. The subject line was simple. We need to talk. For a solid minute, I just stared at it. I'd expected a snarky message from Darren or a guilt trip from Mom. Not this. Not Jess. Curiosity when I opened it. Her message wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It read like someone trying to process too many things at once, like she'd been hit with a truth she didn't know what to do with. Elliot, I know we haven't really talked. I never meant to be part of what happened at the dinner, but I also didn't try to stop it. That's on me. Okay, I thought fair start. That night, my dad was confused. He'd been told you offered to pay, that you wanted to sit off to the side because you're a quiet guy who doesn't like crowds. I snorted. That sounded like Darren. He asked the restaurant for a breakdown of the bill, just to understand what went where. The manager sent him the receipt and the reservation name. That's when he realized the version Darren told us didn't add up at all. There it was, the unraveling. She explained that her father, Mr. Carmichael, had been livid. Not just because of the money, but because of the lie. He wasn't a man who tolerated deception, especially not when it made him look like a fool in front of extended family and colleagues. He said, and I quote, "If they treat him like that, the one who made this night possible, how will they treat you once your name changes?" She didn't hold back. She talked about the fight she and Darren had the next morning, about the screenshots her dad showed her, about the call she made to the restaurant manager just to hear it herself. Darren said you were being sensitive, that you always overreact. But when I pieced everything together, it wasn't overreaction, it was restraint. And then came the line that hit me in the chest like a blunt object. I ended the engagement last night. I blinked, reread it. She wasn't kidding. Jess explained that it wasn't just the dinner. It was a mirror, a big ugly mirror reflecting things she'd been ignoring. How Darren always redirected blame, how he minimized her concerns, how he twisted generosity into obligation and treated other people's support as something he was owed by default. I used to think he was just a little immature, she wrote. But now I see he's entitled, and that scares me. The email ended simply, "I'm not reaching out to stir things up. I just wanted you to know I see it now, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I sat back, not angry, not smug, just still. Because for once, someone had finally seen it, all of it, and didn't flinch. The following week was quieter than I expected. No more calls from Darren. No texts from Mom. Just this eerie silence where the drama used to be. Honestly, it felt good. I slept better, ate better, walked around without that low-grade tension humming in the background like static. And then one Sunday morning, just when I'd convinced myself it was finally over, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and there she was, Mom, standing on my porch in a cardigan and old jeans, holding a container of lasagna like it was some kind of peace treaty. I didn't say anything, just opened the door and waited. I brought dinner, she said. I have food, I replied. I figured she said softly, I just wanted to talk. I let her in. She sat at the kitchen table like it was unfamiliar territory. I didn't offer coffee, didn't ask how the drive was, just sat across from her and waited. She looked older than usual. Not tired, not disheveled, just smaller. Her hands twisted in her lap like she was trying to knit words together. I owe you an apology, she finally said. I raised an eyebrow, just one. Her lips pressed into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, probably more than one. She took a breath. I didn't see it, not because it wasn't there, but because I didn't want to see it. Darren's always been loud, charming. He takes up a lot of space. And I don't, I said. She nodded. You never asked for anything. You handled things quietly, gracefully. And we started, depending on that. Treating you like the backup plan, the safety net. I let the silence stretch. She looked down. Her voice shook. That night, when you walked out, something broke in me because I saw how far we'd pushed you. And I realized we didn't even know where the line was until you drew it in the sand and walked away. I didn't speak. She blinked quickly. I know lasagna won't fix it. I know it's years too late, but I wanted you to know I see it now, and I'm sorry. For the first time, she didn't defend Darren. Didn't tell me I was overreacting. Didn't use the word sensitive. She just sat there, and for once that was enough. I nodded, slowly. Thank you. We didn't hug, didn't cry, just stood up and walked to the door. She turned before leaving. I'm not asking you to forgive him, or to call, or to come to Thanksgiving. Just take care of yourself, okay? I will, I said. She left the lasagna. I never opened it, but I appreciated the gesture. It wasn't closure, not really, but it was something. In the weeks that followed, the dynamic shifted. Not dramatically, not with big speeches or movie moments, just subtle changes. The family group chat went silent for good. Mom started texting me directly. Short messages, respectful ones, no guilt, no expectations. Dad sent a meme once, the wrong format, of course, but still baby steps. Darren stayed silent, and that was a gift all on its own. Through a friend, I heard he was living at home again, still figuring things out. Apparently, Jess returned the ring. Her dad canceled every vendor. And from what I gathered, some of Darren's friends had started distancing themselves. Especially the ones who used to cozy up for access to Jess's family. The karmic dust was settling. And I wasn't in the blast zone anymore. Around that time, I decided to do something for myself. I finally took that trip to Spain. I'd canceled 2 years ago. Booked it without telling anyone. Walked around Barcelona with no plan, no schedule, no role to play. I didn't check the group chat. I didn't send updates. I just existed for me. And when I got back, I bought a new set of noise-canceling headphones. Signed up for therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I realized healing wasn't going to come from someone else finally saying sorry. It had to come from me looking in the mirror and saying, you deserved better. And you finally gave it to yourself. You'd think that after a family implosion of that scale, the rebuilding would begin, that someone would start laying bricks, extending olive branches, or at the very least sending long paragraphs filled with justifications. But the weirdest thing, no one really said much at all, and maybe that silence used to scare me, used to make me feel invisible. But now it felt like peace. No more side comments dressed as jokes, no more being looped into group plans after they'd already been decided. No more, can you spot me texts that conveniently arrived right after payday. Instead, I had my space, and for the first time in a long time, it wasn't lonely. I started noticing things, small, quiet joys I'd forgotten how to see, like walking through the park with headphones in and no one to answer to, or cooking an actual meal for myself instead of grabbing takeout between errands for other people. I wasn't running anymore. I was finally resting. One Friday afternoon, I stopped by the florist shop near my building, the same one I'd called for the engagement dinner arrangements. The owner recognized me. You the one with the lavender and eucalyptus mix? She asked. I blinked. Yeah, actually. She smiled. You got good taste. Shame about that dinner, though. Heard it didn't end too well. I gave a slow grin. It ended exactly how it needed to. She nodded, like she understood more than she let on. People show their true colors when the check comes. No lies detected. Then one night, maybe a month after Spain, I got a text from someone unexpected. Jess, hope this isn't weird. Just wanted to say thanks, again. I paused, then replied. Not weird. Appreciate you reaching out. We ended up talking for over an hour about everything. Not just the dinner or Darren or her dad's dramatic fallout speech, but about how she was doing. How she'd moved back into her old condo. How she was finally investing in her own business instead of carrying someone else's ambitions. I think I kept hoping Darren would grow into the person he kept promising to become, she said at one point. But you can only believe in potential for so long before you realize it's just fiction. I told her I understood, because I did. We weren't best friends. We weren't bonding over revenge. It was just two people who'd lived under the shadow of someone else's entitlement, finally seeing the sunlight. Before we hung up, she said something I didn't expect. I used to think you were the quiet, boring one. I laughed. I am. No, she said. You're the honest one, and that scares people more than anything. Around that same time, my mom started texting me like a real person. Short check-ins. No guilt, just thinking of you or found this old photo of us. Sometimes I replied, sometimes I didn't. I wasn't trying to punish her, I just wasn't going to rush to rebuild something I didn't break. What mattered was she stopped asking me to fix things. That alone was progress. Then one Saturday morning, while reorganizing my closet, because yes, I finally had time for things like color-coded hangers, I found the folder. Tucked behind a stack of old tax returns. It was the engagement dinner folder. Printed invoices, email confirmations, floral mock-ups, even the seating chart. I stood there staring at it like I'd found a time capsule. All that effort, all that planning, just so I could be sat next to a trash bin with no food and a bill that wasn't mine. For a second, I almost trashed it, but instead, I slid it into a new envelope, labeled it quietly. Lessons paid in full. Because honestly, that's what it was. A receipt for the moment. I stopped letting people spend me like spare change. And then just when I thought the storm had passed, I got another message, this time from Darren. Not a call, not a text, an actual email. Subject line, let's talk. Against my better judgment, I opened it. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I get that. I messed up big and not just at the dinner. Okay, interesting start. I've been doing some thinking. Talking to a therapist, actually. Jess's dad made some points that hit harder than I wanted to admit. That part surprised me. I never realized how much you did or how little I ever gave in return. He mentioned specific things like the time I canceled my trip or how he used our joint account way past the original plan. He even said, "You always bailed us out and we treated you like background noise. That's not okay." He ended with, "I'm not asking to be best friends. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Genuinely, and I hope someday we can talk, even if it's just once." I sat with that email for a long time. Because here's the thing, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for him to hurt like I did. I wasn't hoping he'd get dumped or lose money or be humiliated. That wasn't the win. The win was that I didn't need his apology to be okay, but it felt good to hear it. I didn't reply. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I bookmarked the message, and that was enough for now. Later that week, I walked past a new restaurant being built 2 blocks down Rooftop View. Same vibe as the one I'd booked for Darren's dinner. There was a now hiring sign in the window and fresh ivy being planted along the railing. It looked peaceful. I stood across the street just watching the sun bounce off the new windows, and for a second I imagined a different scene. Same rooftop, same skyline, but this time no garbage bin, no folding chair. Just me, a real table, a seat with my name on it. Surrounded not by obligation, but by people who saw me. Not for what I gave, but for who I am. And I smiled. Not because it was real yet, but because I knew someday soon it could be 3 months past. 3 quiet, spacious, unchaotic months. I didn't realize how loud my life used to be until the noise stopped. Not the literal kind, though. Darren had a talent for turning even silence into performance, but the noise of expectation, of guilt, of being on call for a family that only dialed my number when something needed fixing. Now I was unreachable in the best possible way. I'd started going to the gym again. Not for any dramatic makeover, just to feel stronger in my own body. I signed up for a weekend photography class, bought a plant I swore I'd keep alive, and shockingly I did. I even got a dog. A scrappy little rescue named Miso with one floppy ear and zero regard for personal space. He became my new shadow. Loud snorer, loyal heart. Would fight a city bus to defend me. Miso didn't care about old seating charts. He cared that I came home every day, that I played fetch, that I gave belly rubs. And somehow that made me feel more loved than 1,000 awkward family dinners ever had. Around this time, I started reconnecting with people I'd put on pause for years. There was Mara, a friend from college I hadn't seen since graduation. We grabbed coffee on a whim after she replied to a photo I posted of Miso in a sun hat. She hugged me like no time had passed. "You still carry everything for everyone?" she asked with a wry smile. I laughed, not anymore. We talked for hours about our lives. Jobs, failed relationships. She told me how she left a toxic startup and started freelancing from her sunlit apartment. I told her about Spain, the rooftop dinner, the trash bin chair. She winced. "That's not a family. That's a board of shareholders exploiting your emotional labor." We both laughed, but it stuck with me. She was right. That wasn't a family. It was a business transaction where I always played the unpaid intern. So I stopped treating them like shareholders, and I started building something better. One Saturday night, Mara invited me to her birthday dinner. Nothing fancy, a backyard setup, string lights, tacos, good people. I showed up with Miso, a homemade cake, and a six-pack. As soon as I walked in, someone yelled "Elliot" and waved me over. A real wave, not the polite kind that people do out of obligation. I sat at a long table between a poet and a tattoo artist. The music was soft, the food was hot, and the laughter was real. Halfway through the night, Mara clinked a fork against her glass and stood. She didn't give a long speech, just raised her drink and said, "Thanks for being my chosen family. I love you weirdos." Everyone cheered, and I felt something shift. For years, I kept trying to earn a seat at a table where my name was never written on the place card. Kept trying to prove I was worth something to people who only looked up when they needed help moving furniture or money wired overnight. But here, no begging, no bending, no shrinking, just belonging. A few days later, I got another message from Darren. This one wasn't an essay, just a single sentence. "I understand if you never want to talk to me again, but I'm still sorry." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't hate him. I didn't wish him failure. I didn't want revenge anymore. That ship had sailed, sunk, and been turned into a reef. But forgiveness doesn't mean reopening doors. So I typed out a reply, honest, simple. "I hope you figure things out. But I'm moving on. Take care of yourself." And that was that. Later that week, I visited my parents. Yeah, that surprised even me. Mom had texted a few times asking gently if I'd stop by for dinner. She didn't beg, didn't bribe, just asked. So I did. No fanfare, no passive aggression, just spaghetti and garlic bread. Dad greeted me at the door with an awkward pat on the back. Mom handed me a plate and didn't mention Darren once. We talked about normal things. TV shows, Miso, the weather. At one point she said, "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," I said. She nodded. "I'm glad." There was a pause. She didn't push it. She didn't try to fix it. She just let the moment breathe. That alone showed growth. Before I left, she walked me to the door. "I know we still have work to do," she said. "I just want to do it without pretending anymore." I believed her, maybe for the first time. On the drive home, I thought about how long I'd waited for moments like that. The simple kind, honest kind. Not grand gestures, just truth. And then I remembered something Jess had said during our phone call weeks ago. Something quiet, almost offhand. "You weren't too sensitive. You were just surrounded by people who were too careless." It echoed in my mind, because that was the lie I had swallowed for years, that I was the problem. Too serious, too cold, too distant, too responsible. But all I ever did was carry weight that was never mine. And when I finally put it down, the world didn't end. It got quieter. Calmer kinder. So now I make my own tables. Sometimes it's a cafe bench with a book and a latte. Sometimes it's Mara's backyard with salsa stains on my jeans and Miso chasing butterflies. I don't need their approval anymore. I don't need their version of love that comes with receipts and conditions. I need peace, and I finally have it. Not because they gave it to me, but because I stopped asking for it. I chose myself, and for the first time in my life, that choice was enough. It's strange, really, how something so small, one folding chair in the wrong place, can unravel decades of buried resentment, unspoken sacrifices, and second-place living. I used to think it would take a major blowout, screaming a slammed door, maybe even an ugly confrontation in a hospital hallway like in those dramas Mom loves. But no, my line in the sand was quiet, measured. 4 words, not my table anymore. And those 4 words set everything in motion. Not because they were loud, but because for once I meant them. It's been almost a year since that night. The night of the rooftop dinner and the slow public fracture of a family built on half-truths and selective loyalty. Since then, the world hasn't ended. No one exploded. No thunderbolt struck me for walking away from the blood is everything script. In fact, life feels more alive than ever. I've created new routines, slow ones, gentle ones, the kind that don't revolve around being someone's backup plan or financial first responder. Miso wakes me up every morning by climbing on my chest like he pays rent. I make eggs and toast. I water the plants. I leave the blinds open and let the light in. Not because I'm expecting company, but because I finally like the view. Some nights, I sit on my balcony with a glass of wine and let myself feel proud. Not loud proud, not the kind you post about, just that quiet kind. The kind you feel when you stop waiting for someone to clap. I still see Mom occasionally. We've reached this new kind of rhythm, not perfect, but real. No more passive guilt, no more, "You're just tired," or "Don't take it so personally." Now when we talk, it's with eye contact and pauses that actually allow for listening. She asks about me. What I'm reading, what I'm planning, not what I can do for someone, but what I'm doing for myself. That shift huge. Dad is slower to adapt, but he's trying. He forwarded me an article the other day about burnout in adult children. The link didn't work, of course, but the effort mattered. Darren, still MIA. I know from a mutual friend that he's renting a room in some old college buddy's apartment and working at a startup he already hates. Same cycle, different city. I don't wish him ill, I really don't. But I also don't feel the need to save him anymore. Maybe someday we'll talk, maybe not. Either way, I'm not holding the door open with my foot anymore. I think the biggest shift happened inside me. It was never really about the money or the seating chart or the check I didn't sign. It was about years of being cast as dependable, not deserving necessary but never celebrated, present but never prioritized. When you're the responsible one, people don't worry about you. They assume you'll figure it out. They assume you have to be okay because you always seem okay. So they pile on more. And you carry it because it feels like the only way to stay relevant. Until one day you realize that being needed is not the same as being loved. The story used to end like this. Family fights, someone storms out, a few months of silence, and then a birthday or holiday forces us all into the same room again, pretending like nothing happened. But not this time. Because I didn't just walk out of a dinner. I walked into myself. And I stayed. Last month, I hosted my own little dinner, just 6 people, friends, 1 cousin. I actually like Mara, a neighbor who brought sangria and the world's ugliest but most delicious pie. We ate outside on the patio. String lights, jazz in the background. Paper plates, 0 stress. No assigned seats, no hierarchy. Just laughter, soft moments, and the kind of joy that doesn't need a filter. At one point, someone asked, "Hey, who set this all up? This is amazing." And I smiled. I did. But I didn't say it like I used to, quietly, like I was trying not to take credit. I said it plainly, proudly, because I did make it happen. And this time, it was for people who saw me. Really saw me. Not the guy in the background, not the checkbook with a face. Me. There's a photo from that night. Someone snapped it without me noticing. I'm leaning back in my chair, laughing with miso under the table and a glass of wine in hand. It's not posed, it's not perfect, but it's honest. And I look free. That photo now sits in a frame on my bookshelf, right next to a little plaque I bought online. It says, "This is your table, sit proudly." I don't know what'll happen years from now. Maybe Darren finds his way. Maybe Mom and I become something closer to real friends than mother and son playing roles. Maybe none of that ever happens. That's okay. I've stopped treating family like a debt I need to keep paying with parts of myself. I've stopped chasing chairs at tables that weren't built for me, because now I've built my own, and it's warm and kind, and filled with people who don't need me to shrink to stay. So no, I didn't pay that rooftop bill, but I've paid my dues 1,000 times over. And now I'm finally rich, not in dollars, but in self-worth, in peace, in the kind of love that doesn't demand sacrifice to exist. And if you're reading this wondering if it's okay to walk away when the seat they offer you is next to the trash, let me be clear. It is. You don't owe anyone your dignity. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. And if no one's ever said it to you before, let me say it now. You deserve a seat at your own table. Story 2. Jacob is my name. My family says that the fact that I'm 33 and unmarried is a concern. They wouldn't express it directly. It's always there, but not in many words. Behind the 2 lengthy pauses and the tight grins on every holiday. People ask me if I still work from home, despite the fact that I have a profitable graphic design firm. Since you don't seem to mind, I'm the one who is sat next to the strange uncle or the high chair. Correct. Above all, it is expected of me to arrive bearing presents, not just any gifts, though big, considerate, extravagant gifts that make for a fantastic Instagram post, but never a thank you card, are what the brand is looking for. My sister Brooke and her fiancé Nate recently purchased their first home. 2 tales. The idea is open. Everything quartz worktops. You are aware of the kind you're scared to leave your fingerprints on anything in this type of setting. The 29-year-old real estate professional shares so many well-executed interior photos that you would assume she was sponsored by a linen manufacturer. I was very delighted for her. Really. Her ambition had always been present. She was the popular cheerleader despite the fact that we weren't close as kids. I sat at the back of the class since I was the quiet child. I hoped that this would be an opportunity for us to start over. She casually remarked a few months ago that she was interested in purchasing this particular set of handcrafted dining pieces from a nearby craftsman. There were 6 seats, a matching table, and incredibly costly carved details. It's excessive, she added. It's like my dream piece, though. She chuckled when she said that. You know, I remembered, as she sipped her drink without even glancing at me, a couple months of staying up late. After much careful preparation and a significant portion of my finances, I was able to have it built just for her. The velvety matte surface of walnut wood seats were upholstered in her favorite dusty sage color. I also had our family's initials discreetly inscribed beneath the table lip as a historical reference. I thought that would be the ideal housewarming present for her kind giving and significant. Something like, "Wow, you really know me," that would cause her to pause. On a Saturday, the housewarming celebration took place. She would be taken aback because I had planned for the set to be delivered only an hour before the guests were scheduled to arrive. And I'll be honest, I was a bit moved. I imagined her embracing me in front of everyone, maybe with tears in her eyes. Maybe never had I gotten that from her before. Everyone was bustling about with little charcuterie cups and mimosas. When I got there, she came over with a phony smile that stopped short of her eyes when she saw me at the entrance. "Oh," she remarked, glancing past me as if she were expecting someone more interesting. "Really? You brought it?" I blinked. "Yes." Raising the edge of the cloth thrown over one of the seats, I remarked, "I assumed you would like it to arrive before the pictures." She didn't give it a glance. She chuckled as she turned to face a group of her pals. "My brother is that. Although he has good intentions, he is somewhat of a charity case for our family, always attempting to overcompensate." They chuckled, with my hands still clutching the chair's side like an anchor. I stood still. On the other side of the room were my parents. They heard it. Before she looked aside and feigned fascination in the guacamole, I noticed the spark in my mother's eyes. My father lifted his drink and gave me that kind of nod. Counted as acknowledgement. Somehow I made an effort to grin. When everything inside of you is falling apart, you wear that tight, courteous one, I answered quietly. I'm glad you like it. Still, I assisted in setting it up. I unwrapped each chair individually, cleaned the legs, and repositioned each one to be precisely spaced. Nobody offered assistance. Nobody even inquired as to its origin. I watched as her pals sat there, clinking drinks, taking photographs, referring to it as Pinterest aspirations. As I smiled, nodded, and drank flat soda, I felt myself slipping through the remainder of the party like a ghost. Around me, people spoke over me. I was never introduced by Brooke. Someone eventually dropped a drink and wiped it up with one of the seat cushions. Just before leaving, I bit my tongue. After wandering back into the dining room, I gently flipped over a knocked-over chair, fixed it, and asked, "You, just in case I pulled a folded letter I'd written that morning out of my coat pocket." My hand paused. I then flipped the chair back upright after tucking it under the frame and pressing it flat under the seat. Nobody noticed I didn't bid them farewell. With the same courteous grin plastered on my face, I just left via the front door. It was colder outside than I thought it would be, bracing and sharp. I took my time walking to my car. I had hands in my pockets that were ringing with unclaimed laughter. I silently drove home while mentally reciting the words, "Our family's charitable case." Until the following morning, the note remained hidden. That night, I didn't get much sleep. I couldn't get the expression off her face, the enjoyment as well as the disinterest. As if I were a joke, like my effort, like my presence. It was humiliating how much time I had to spend organizing the present. I believed I had moved on. No, I wasn't. Not at all. I woke up to 14 text messages the following morning. Brooke was the first. Brooke sent a text. "What is this? Really, Jacob? What is this? What's wrong with you?" My mother then added her voice. She sent a text. "Why would you place such a thing in her chair? The party was supposed to be pleasant. Why sabotage it?" A couple of calls were missed. Two from an unidentified number that turned out to be her friend Chelsea, one from Nate, and one from Brooke once more. It seems that everyone read the note for dramatic effect. Brooke might have read it out loud. I'm not sure, but it moved swiftly around. I didn't answer. Not just yet. I wanted to spend a little time sitting in silence. Because I hadn't felt so powerful in a long time as I did during those few hours of silence, during which they had to listen to my words. I'll tell you what was written in the note. It wasn't some irate tirade or outburst filled with foul language. That's not how I work. My writing was straightforward, managed, sincerely, Brooke. 4 months of saving, 2 weeks of back-and-forth design revisions, and 3 late-night phone conversations with a carpenter who no longer takes on custom work were all necessary to create this dining set. You mentioned it was your dream piece at least once, so I did it. You were unaware of it. However, I did not take a vacation. I've been saving for this for more than a year. I hoped that this would be the turning point, that you would finally see me as more than just a backup plan or a walking wallet. You refer to me as the family charity case instead. Here is the charity. Then I'm finished. Keep the furniture. I won't ask for it back, but don't expect gifts, favors, or support anymore. Not financial, not emotional, not anything. You wanted your dream dining set? Congrats, but you'll have to sit at it knowing exactly what it cost, Jacob. I didn't sign it with love. I didn't have to. That morning, the group chat I'd been in with the family for years, the one where we planned holidays and birthdays, went quiet. Then I noticed my name had been removed entirely. My mother must have done it, or maybe Brooke. Honestly, I didn't care. Not anymore. At noon, my dad called. I debated answering, but curiosity won. His voice was calm, but I could hear the tension underneath. "She's upset," he said. "I know," I replied. "She didn't mean it like that." "Then how did she mean it?" I asked, genuinely curious, because she said it to a room full of people and laughed. I didn't see a trace of regret. A pause occurred. Then he sighed, the way he always does when he knows there's nothing left to argue. "Your mother wants everyone to get along. Tell Tell her I'm not the one who needs to change. I hung up. That evening, Brooke posted a picture on her Instagram story. A filtered shot of the dining table perfectly styled with wine glasses and eucalyptus branches captioned, "Dreams come true." No credit, no tag, no mention. But I noticed something strange. The chairs were turned slightly, not perfectly aligned like I had set them, and one was missing from the frame entirely. I grinned. She'd found the note, and I knew it hit its mark. The next few weeks passed quietly for the first time in years. I didn't get a passive-aggressive reminder about Mother's Day. No guilt-tripping texts, no, since you're good with money messages, nothing but quiet. And then 2 Saturdays later, something happened that pushed the tension from simmering to a full boil. I was at a local coffee shop when I ran into Nate alone. He looked like he hadn't slept, pale, bags under his eyes, jittery in a way that didn't match the calm, curated vibe he always tried to project. He recognized me, gave a stiff nod, and tried to walk past, but I stepped in front of him. "You read the note too?" "You didn't answer," just looked over my shoulder like he wanted to disappear. "She's been crying," he muttered eventually. "Told everyone you blindsided her." I raised an eyebrow. Funny, no one's ever blindsided when I make checks. That stung him, I saw it. Then he stated something I didn't anticipate. "She told me she doesn't know why you're so frigid, that you've always been emotionally disconnected. But honestly," he glanced aside. "Then returning after that party, I got it now." I gazed at him, uncertain if that was intended to be a jab or empathy. "She wants to apologize," he added hurriedly, "but only if you'll like." "Take the post down." "What post?" I asked. His face paled even further. And that's when I knew she assumed I'd gone public. She believed I'd taken this to Reddit, to Facebook, to TikTok, someplace I hadn't yet revealed her, but she believed I had. I slightly leaned in. "Inform Brooke that I didn't publish anything." He blinked. "You didn't," I grinned. "Not quite yet." Then I left, leaving him standing like a deer between 2 headlights in the center of the cafe. Because my sister had no idea what was going to happen if she believed the message was the end of it. After that, I didn't hear from Nate again. Brooke didn't text either, didn't give a call. Not even one of those performatives was sent. Hello, just dropping in messages with a smiley face. Usually when she wants something, she drops like breadcrumbs. It should have been a relief to be silent, but it wasn't. It served as a warning. You see, Brooke never stops talking, not unless she is preparing a relocation, and I had a gut feeling she wasn't finished. By no means. She may have felt ashamed, even embarrassed. However, my sister and others don't sit with that type of emotion. They utilize it, turn it, and repackage it, and she did precisely that. My mother contacted me again 2 weeks after I met Nate at the cafe. She didn't spend time on small conversation this time. She said angrily, "Jacob, have you disclosed to others that Brooke referred to you as a charity case?" There was no difference in my heart rate. During Brooke's party at her house, I sent her a handwritten message expressing my feelings. That's all. My mom became brittle in her speech. Now that her friends are chatting, your Aunt Lila is phoning me to inquire why the family is disintegrating. Perhaps it's because no one ever prevents Brooke from spouting such nonsense in the first place. She didn't mean it that way, I quietly answered. After snapping, my mother instantly softened. Look, everything has gotten out of control. She desires to speak. If you're prepared to be the larger person, you may even say apologize. I was done. She fell silent. Always me, I whispered. Each and every time, it must be smoothed up by me. It's me who extends forgiveness first. Are you even able to hear? She was likely sitting down when there was a rustling of movement, followed by silence. Jacob, she's your sister. In addition, she is a 29-year-old lady who offends her loved ones in public, and none of you defended me in any way. Not one. Once more silence. She is missing you. Eventually, my mother said, No, I said in a crisp, quiet voice. What I do for her is something she misses. I realized then that I couldn't allow them to continue to fabricate the tale. I couldn't allow Brooke to paint me as the bad guy, the resentful sibling who lost it over nothing. For this was not insignificant. The family spent 10 years emotionally retaliating against their ATM, their fixer. I decided as a result, I signed into a different Instagram account that I had kept hidden for years, not mine. Although I didn't post very often, I followed enough of Brooke's mutuals and friends to have a decent understanding of her world. Glossy, well-chosen, delicate items. She relied on vision to survive, and perception was based on a glass home. I put 3 pictures up. The first was a time-stamped screen grab of the bespoke dining set invoice, which included my name, the name of the artist, and the entire cost. A picture of the table as I had initially arranged it was the second. Tidy, lovely, not touched. The third is a cropped copy of the note I put beneath the chair, and the third was taken right before visitors arrived. No tagging, no names, only this caption. Giving your heart to someone who just cares about the receipt is something you do sometimes. Just a friendly reminder that being generous does not equate to weakness. However, allowing others to trample it does. The post was shared more than 100 times in a matter of hours. Comments were flooding in unfamiliar people, mutuals. Some of Brooke's acquaintances were able to make the connections and accurately identify the furnishings. Even, "Oof, I was at that party," was a statement. That's what she said? Uncomfortable. My phone then rang. Brooke. I took a good look at the screen before responding. Her voice had the same sweet tone she used to try not to lose it in front of people, tight and angry. "Jacob, what's wrong with you?" I said without mentioning your name. "You didn't have to." "Everyone is aware, do they?" I inquired. "Or are you simply scared? It sounds like something you would say, so they believe it." She fell silent. "Then you're exaggerating this situation. I am being humiliated by you. I was publicly humiliated by you in front of strangers." And there was silence. "I'm going to say something now," she laughed. "This is retaliation then. Do you believe you're instructing me?" "No," I said. "I believe I am reminding you of the pain of hurting someone who once cared." I hung up after that. That could be the end of it, I thought. But she wasn't finished, Brooke. I received a letter in the mail 3 days later, real mail, official letterhead. An attorney's notification. This is a request to stop and desist any defamatory actions that might harm someone's reputation. Not a lawsuit. It was absurd, without foundation. However, the message was unambiguous. She felt afraid. Additionally, Brooke lashes out when she feels threatened. I thus used my own attorney to produce a response. Only 1 page. No one has been defamed by my client. No harm can be demonstrated if the incidents are not related to your client. If they are, maybe you should care more about whether her actions were accurate than whether they were made public. We forward it. No response, no follow-up, just more quiet. Then I began getting texts one by one. Keep quiet. Sorry in a roundabout way. Not from Brooke, for that she is still too proud, but from those who surround her. An old classmate, a buddy. Even Nate once more. She has been going downhill. He mentioned losing deals because of this in a text message one evening. People are posing inquiries. In all honesty, I didn't want to see her burn, so I didn't respond. I didn't want her reputation to be permanently damaged. I did, however, want the illusion to end. The ideal sister, the gleaming mask, the phony humility. And now she had to spend every morning at her ideal dinner table, recall who gave it to her, how much it cost, and how quickly she discarded it. I began to hear rumors that Brooke had deleted her Instagram account around a month after the lawyer's letter and the widely shared photo. Nor just archived stuff gone, nor simply posts erased. Her painstakingly maintained page, which had 30,000 followers and featured staged lifestyle photos, aspirational sponsorship deals, and well-timed videos, disappeared. At first, I didn't notice. To be honest, I didn't check. However, I received a message from a high school acquaintance. I hardly knew that, said, "Bro, did your sister really delete her entire page?" Yes, it was wiped clean when I checked. Without any fanfare, her online image and the ideal life she had constructed around a lie fell apart. A part of me also thought she would rebuild it as usual, to emerge from the ashes with some dramatic post about limits, development, or whatever catchphrase she decided to use this quarter. She didn't. Rather, she vanished, only a few weeks later. At our dad's birthday dinner did I see her again. As she usually did when she felt that things were unraveling beyond her control, my mother had called to attempt to bring the family back together. I had made peace with myself, so I agreed to come, not because I wanted to be a peacemaker. I brought a drink and got there 10 minutes early. My dad liked, I knew that. Nothing ostentatious or theatrical. Just being considerate, deliberate. The home had the same appearance as usual, but I had never felt such attention till I entered. My mom grinned too broadly, as if he wasn't sure which version of me he was going to get. My dad continued looking at me. Calm as ever, I gave them both hugs and took a seat at the table. It took Brooke 15 minutes to arrive. She still wore her usual carefree attire and little makeup, but she didn't appear worn out. However, the gleam had vanished. Her eyes exhibited a hollowness, as if the mask had finally fallen off and she had no idea how to replace it. She didn't give me a hug when she met me, just an awkward little hello. I gave a nod. Hello? The dinner was tense. My mother was often forcing herself to chuckle at quiet moments. My father attempted to make a sports joke. Brooke didn't even touch her dinner. She made no reference to the post, inquired about the message, or expressed regret in any way. Simply sat there drinking as though feigning a sense of well-being would somehow make it real. Finally, halfway through, she addressed me directly. Did you honestly believe that I had read that note, and what exactly? Weep. Her voice was part tired, half demanding. I stared at her for a while. Not arrogant, not angry, just be truthful. If you wept, it didn't matter to me. If you understood, I said I cared. Despite her anger, she remained silent. After jumping in, our mother quickly patched the hole. Let's not think about all of it. All right, it's your father's birthday, and we're here to celebrate. Unexpectedly, though, Dad raised a hand. No, he responded. Let them finish. He spoke in a calm but very forceful tone. We've all been dancing around this for a while now. I believe, Brooke laughed quietly. Bitter, you all pretend that I'm the bad guy. That's not what I said. I didn't say such things during the party, but I did respond softly. You did, and you made me seem foolish in front of the entire internet community. I looked her in the eyes. No, you made a fool of yourself. I simply quit tidying up after you. For once, that made her stop talking. There was no turning back, no sarcastic remarks, nothing but quiet. Shortly after dinner was over, but she followed me out to the driveway as I got up to go. It was cool. The sky, that gentle, deep blue tint right before nightfall. With her arms crossed and her gaze fixed on the floor, she stood on the front steps. At last, she added, I've lost 2 sponsors. Brands offers. It all dried up. I waited. I had to keep it private. I was being tagged, among other things. People are chatting among themselves, calling me a narcissist and a gold seeker. Someone who loved you was degraded by you. Stay steady, I urged. The fallout is this. You can no longer maintain it consequence-free. She gave it a quick glance. You intended to discipline me. No, I said I wished to be without you. For the first time in our lives, her mouth opened and then closed. I had a glimpse of genuine vulnerability on her face. Do you despise me? Softly, she inquired. Strangely enough, that question somewhat broke my heart. No, I said I meant it too. You are not hated by me. I've just come to terms with who you are. She blinked as if the response had fallen short of her expectations. As I got into my car and drove away, she took a step back, clearly scared, and remained silent. 8 months have passed since then. I have only heard from her once since. A brief email without a greeting or subject line. Only 2 sentences under the table. I discovered the initials LIP. I sobbed. I apologize for not responding. I didn't need to see, not because I was being petty. Fire and fury isn't what true retaliation is. It's not public takedowns or yelling battles. It's realizing that those who have taken advantage of you will someday have to sit at the table you've established every day and experience what they did. Her life wasn't ruined by me. I simply ceased shielding her from it. And she can't take her eyes off that lovely walnut table with the sage green seats and the little carved initials as she puts down her wine glass. She will recall the one individual who arrived when nobody else did and how it made her laugh in his face. In my case, I eventually made the reservation for that trip Lisbon for 2 weeks. Only sketchbooks, no family, no Wi-Fi, sunlight on my skin after long treks. I also didn't feel like a charity case for the first time in a long time. I felt as though I had never forgotten my value and would never allow someone to do so again. Story 3. Daniel is my name. I am 31 years old, and I have learned to laugh off insults that feel more like paper cuts throughout the most of my adult life. Tiny, sharp, and healing. Slowly. My family enjoys gatherings but dislikes people. People don't like me anyhow. You know, the kind of families that use Instagram likes and your life milestones as a scoreboard to gauge your value. I was never going to win. With that said, my sister. Brooke is our family's current MVP. Blonde, loud, and expertly organized highlight reel in a 3-day event in a vineyard. She got engaged at the age of 23 and married at the age of 25. Since then, she has been hosting themed baby showers for her children as if she were trying out for a lifestyle magazine. May I have been the silent one, the late blossom. Perhaps he simply doesn't like commitment. It became a series of subtle interrogations masquerading as conversation every time I brought a girlfriend home. So, you don't mind his work, he's still there. You know, rent is a right. You met via an app. I see, that's cute. Still, I showed up every christening, every holiday, and every birthday. When they neglected to put my name on the group photographs, I sat at the folding tables and grinned. Despite being told that I was the last one remaining, I made courteous conversation and brought gifts that they didn't unwrap in front of me. However, Brooke's wedding was the worst. I recall arriving early wearing a respectable suit. It was simple but tidy, and one of the planners with a clipboard stopped me at the entry and asked if I was Daniel. The 1+. When I located my seat, I didn't even see my name on the seating chart. A few college buddies and the groom's distant cousins were present at the overflow table. They were unsure on where to put it. Brooke genuinely told everyone who contributed to today's beauty. You know who you are, and you're sitting right here in front of me during her speech. No, I wasn't. I was next to the restroom queue. 3 tables back. Later that evening, when the cake was being carved, individuals were dancing while intoxicated. Brooke drew me away. She was radiant, inebriated, and brimming with pride. Scepter-like, she held her wine glass and added, "You know, Danny, some folks simply aren't suitable for a wedding. However, it's all right. Not everyone needs the spotlight." She gave me a cheek kiss after laughing as if it were a praise rather than a stomach strike. I grinned. I was usually grinning. However, I went home that night and didn't talk to her again for 6 months. 5 years later, someone I met? Layla is her name. Where has she gone? I'm nervous and firm when I'm unsure, and she treats me as though I'm sufficient. Not someone who should be polished or rationalized. Before I proposed, we dated for 3 years. Silently, not much fanfare. We were alone on a trail with a view of the lake, she sobbed. Yes, I said, and then posed the query. I had been afraid to ask. Is your family planning to attend? It wasn't because I didn't want her to meet them that I hesitated. She had done so already, but because I was aware of the consequences of inviting them. The same teasing, the sarcastic praise, the theatrical embraces. I suggested that we give it some thought. I kept putting off making the guest list when we first started organizing the wedding. Layla took note. "Is it truly that difficult?" she inquired. While showcasing vendors in a wedding magazine one evening, I was honest with her. I told her about the comment Brooke's wedding and how I always felt like a supporting character in my family's production. She paid attention. She did not pass judgment. She simply replied, "Maybe it's time for you to write your own story," while holding my hand. Something changed within me. Not yet. Not out of rage, but insight. I came to the realization that I had been harmed for years by individuals who were completely unaware of the harm. I wasn't hated by them, I just wasn't valued by it. And I had finished purchasing my table ticket. I wasn't invited there. We reserved an upstate location. Beautiful rustic cottages, not ostentatious. Between trees, fairy lights are hung. The event will take place in a clearing overlooking the hills. It reminded us of ourselves. The guest list was retained tiny. Some of my pals, Lila's, her parents, 2 mentors, workers who would end up being family. I considered include Brooke. Yes, I did. I even blinked while staring at the spreadsheet's cursor next to her name. But then the sneer came back to me. The restroom table isn't suitable for a wedding. Remark. I also removed it. Not out of rage and tranquility. My mom constantly neglected to include me and family updates, so I erased the remaining ones. My brother-in-law made passive jokes about how I had finally caught up, and my dad called once a year to tell me how pleased he was of my sister's accomplishment. The invites were sent out, each and every one. My family doesn't have a single winner. The reaction wasn't instantaneous. They must have thought I would just do what I usually did. Keep silent. Arrive late express. Gratitude for a seat. Any table seat. I can't wait to say I do in the hills with the people who really matter, though. As soon as Lila shared the save the date picture with her hand on my chest in the message, hell erupted. The first person to text was Brooke. "You're getting married. Hold on." Then one more, no invitation. Then one that just exclaimed, "Wow," I didn't answer. The following morning, my mother phoned 3 times. One voicemail was left. "Families don't operate like this, Daniel. Give me a call, please." My father sent an email. Who even does that? I was disappointed with the subject line. I didn't open it. Brooke then sent the big one. "In actuality, you're leaving out your entire family. Following everything that we have done for you. All right. However, if you need something later, don't come weeping. Enjoy becoming your little bohemian girlfriend's spouse. It must be pleasant to feel significant at last." I spent a lot of time looking at that message. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I had nothing to explain for the first time in my life. My Uncle Ray, the one relative I had ever partially trusted, called me a few days after the text storm. A retired electrician. He is my mom's older brother. He has a sharp tongue and a heart that only comes out when you least expect it. I responded mainly out of curiosity, even though we hadn't spoken in a long time. Even though it was mid-afternoon, he spoke in a gravelly voice as if he was still waking up from slumber. "Hey, Danny. Listen, your mom has been telling people that you're having a mental breakdown, and I know I shouldn't get involved. Lila is isolating you or something. Are you all right?" I chuckled. In fact, I laughed. "Uncle Ray, I'm all right. I'm doing just well. I simply didn't want the folks who made me feel invisible for years to feel like they deserved to sit in the first row at my wedding." A pause occurred. Well, a lengthy one. "Excellent. It's about darn time." I blinked. "Hold on." "Which child?" "Oh," he said. "Do you believe I missed it? Each Christmas you would arrive with presents for their children, and each time you brought a girl home, they would pretend you were the mailman." She felt like a helpless victim because of them. Not to mention the things Brooke said during her wedding. That was inappropriate. I told your mother. She said Daniel isn't a sensitive person. I realized then that she no longer saw you as a person, but rather as an ATM. I wasn't prepared for how hard it hit. Not because I was insulted, but because I had seen someone. All I wanted was a quiet wedding. Silently, I said, "And you will have one," he said. "You deserved it, Danny. I'm not phoning to accuse you. I'm phoning to express my gratitude for finally losing it up there. It's because you stopped allowing them to hurt you, not because you wounded them." I told Lila what he said that evening. "I'm very proud of you," she murmured as she put her arms around me. However, I continued getting letters from cousins I hardly knew, Brooke's husband, and even a friend from my mom's church, who once inquired as to whether I was the creative one, because apparently being quiet and unmarried means painting portraits in the attic. Every message tasted different. They all boiled down to the same poisonous brew, whether they were overt outbursts or covert guilt trips. How do I take myself out of their story? The group message then appeared. Sure enough, a full-on nuclear family group text that I hadn't seen any activity in for years suddenly sprung into life. It was initiated by my sister. Danny didn't invite his family. He just wanted everyone to know that he was getting married. A screenshot of Lila's save date was supplied. My mother added her voice. "All of us are simply devastated. It seems as though we have forgotten who he is." Then, with his customary emotional grace, my dad, "He has always been self-centered. We simply didn't want to acknowledge it." I spent a good 10 minutes looking over the topic. I knew exactly what not to say. Not that I didn't know what to say. Without saying anything, I exited the group chat. It became serious at that point, Brooke, who couldn't give up the attention she believed I had taken. She shared a picture of herself wearing a bridesmaid outfit online with a mysterious comment, but she didn't name it. "Your younger brother organizes a wedding, but he can't remember who raised him. Hashtag a phony family. No class hashtag." That one gained momentum. Her pals said things like, "You're such a saint," and "UG families can be the worst." Some even explicitly tag me. Brooke, I also didn't reply to those, but then Lila's mother, bless her, entered the conversation. She made a remark. A thought-provoking perspective, particularly after witnessing Layla and Daniel support one another without asking for a dime plan. Everything themselves and pay for everything themselves. They appear to be fully aware of who their true family is. Brooke's post received less likes than that remark. This is where things started to become strange. I received a card in the mail 1 week before to the wedding. I instantly recognized the handwriting, even though there was no return address. It belonged to my mother. A 3-paragraph letter written in blue ink was found within. It was an emotional guilt trip in the opening paragraph, how I was carried for 9 months by her, how she remained awake with me when I had a fever, how she gave it her all. Every time. A covert reprimand took over the second paragraph. How you cannot choose not to be a part of your family. In the last paragraph, I discussed how I needed to consider the impression I was giving off and how I was embarrassing myself in front of the extended family. The kicker was that 1, don't bother returning if you marry this girl without inviting your family. When you need assistance, don't call. We won't be there to greet you on Christmas. Daniel, actions have repercussions. After carefully folding the letter, I replaced it in the envelope and slipped it into the drawer beside the old RSVP cards I didn't show Layla right away because I didn't want her to bear the burden I had already spent years learning to handle. Not because I wanted to shield her. I woke up earlier than I thought I would on the morning of the wedding. The sky was overcast in that ideal soft photograph style, and the air was cool. In another cabin, Layla was getting ready, so I had some alone time. There was only the sound of the wind through pine trees and the aroma of a new beginning. No noise, no buzzing phone. And then my phone lit up a new number. I nearly ignored it, but I felt compelled to respond. "It was Brooke. I just want to know why," she said immediately. "No greeting. Why would you do this to us?" To me, after everything. I sat down on the edge of the porch. "You really don't know." "No, I don't. This is the most vindictive thing you've ever done, not inviting your own family. You've humiliated us. People are asking questions." They're wondering if something's wrong with you. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, Brooke, you told me I wasn't wedding material, that I didn't belong in the spotlight. You made me feel small for years. And now that I'm finally happy, you're upset. I didn't hand you a front row seat to it. You're overreacting, she snapped. It was a joke. God, you're so sensitive. There it was, the phrase I'd heard my whole life. I'm not sensitive, I said quietly. I'm just done. She started to speak again, but I hung up, and then I turned off my phone. By the time guests started arriving, I felt lighter than I had in years. The music played, soft laughter filled the air, and one by one people who chose to be in my life showed up looking like joy incarnate. And just as I stepped behind the trees waiting for my cue to walk down the aisle, the coordinator rushed over to me, wide-eyed and breathless. There's someone at the gate, I raised an eyebrow. Who? She hesitated. Your mom and your sister, and I think your dad's parked across the road. They're not on the list, but they're saying it's a family emergency. I stared at her, my heartbeat steady, then I smiled. Tell them the guest list is final, and then I walked down the aisle. The ceremony itself was everything I didn't know I needed. No flower walls, no drone footage, no 6-piece string quartet, just close friends, warm eyes, and the type of promises that come from braving storms together. When I saw Lila heading toward me, hair braided with small wild flowers, and that serene, brilliant grin, it hit me exactly how far I'd come. Not only from the uncomfortable youngster at the back table, but from the man who used to lean over. My name is Daniel. I'm 31, and I've spent much of my adult life learning how to shrug off insults that feel more like paper wounds. Tiny, sharp, and difficult to heal. I come from a family that likes parties, but not people, at least not people like myself. You know, the type families that assess your value and Instagram likes and compare your life achievements like it's a scoreboard. I was never going to win. With that said, my sister. Brooke is our family's current MVP, blonde, loud, and expertly organized highlight reel. In a 3-day event in a vineyard, she got engaged at the age of 23 and married at the age of 25. Since then, she has been hosting themed baby showers for her children as if she were trying out for a lifestyle magazine. Me, I was the late bloomer, the quiet one, the maybe, he's just not into commitment man. It became a series of subtle interrogations masquerading as conversation every time I brought a girlfriend home. So, you don't mind his work. He's still there, you know. Rent is a right. You met via an app, I see. That's adorable. I did, however, turn up every christening, every holiday, and every birthday. When they neglected to put my name on the group photographs, I sat at the folding tables and grinned. Despite being told that I was the last one remaining, I made courteous conversation and brought gifts that they didn't unwrap in front of me. However, Brooke's wedding was the worst I recall arriving early wearing a respectable suit. It was simple but tidy, and one of the planners with a clipboard stopped me at the entry and asked if I was Daniel. The one plus. When I located my seat, I didn't even see my name on the seating chart. A few college buddies and the groom's distant cousins were present at the overflow table. They were unsure on where to put it. Brooke genuinely told everyone who contributed to today's beauty. You know who you are, and you're sitting right here in front of me, during her speech. No, I wasn't. I was next to the restroom queue, 3 tables back. Brooke drew me aside later that evening while the cake was being carved and everyone were dancing while intoxicated. She was radiant, inebriated, and brimming with pride. Scepter-like, she held her wine glass and added, You know, Danny, some folks simply aren't suitable for a wedding. However, it's all right. Not everyone requires the limelight. She gave me a cheek kiss after laughing as if it were a praise rather than a stomach strike. I grinned. I was usually grinning. However, I went home that night and didn't talk to her again for 6 months. 5 years later. Someone I met, Layla, is her name. She's arrived where I'm worried. She looks at me as if I'm enough while I hesitate. Not someone who should be polished or rationalized. Before I proposed, we dated for 3 years. Silently, not much fanfare. We were alone on a trail with a view of the lake. She sobbed, replied in the affirmative, and then posed the query. I had been afraid, is your family planning to attend? It wasn't because I didn't want her to meet them that I hesitated. Although I was aware of the consequences of inviting them, she had already done so. The same teasing, the sarcastic praise, the theatrical embraces. I suggested that we give it some thought when the wedding preparation process began. On the guest list, I kept putting things off, Layla took note. Is it truly that difficult? She inquired. While showcasing vendors in a wedding magazine one evening. I was honest with her. I told her about the comment Brooke's wedding and how I always felt like a supporting character in my family's production. She paid attention. She did not pass judgment. She simply replied, maybe it's time for you to write your own story, while holding my hand. Something changed within me. Not yet. Not out of rage, but insight. I came to the realization that I had been harmed for years by individuals who were completely unaware of the harm. I wasn't hated by them, I just wasn't valued by them. And I had finished purchasing my ticket to an unwelcome table. We reserved an upstate location, beautiful rustic cottages, not ostentatious. Between trees, fairy lights are hung. The event will take place in a clearing overlooking the hills. It reminded us of ourselves. We had a limited guest list. Some of my pals. Layla's, a couple mentors, and her parents. Workers who would end up being family. I considered include Brooke. Yes, I did. I even blinked while staring at the spreadsheet's cursor next to her name. But then the sneer came back to me. The table in the bathroom. That statement isn't wedding-related. I also removed it. Not out of rage, in tranquility. I then removed the remaining ones for my mother, who often neglected to include me in family updates. My brother-in-law made passive jokes about how I had finally caught up, and my dad called once a year to tell me how pleased he was of my sister's accomplishment. The invites were sent out, each and every one. Not one. One of my relatives. The reaction wasn't instantaneous. They must have thought I would just do what I usually did. Keep silent. Arrive late, express gratitude for a seat. Any table seat. However, the caption said, I can't wait to say I do in the hills with the people who truly matter. As Lila shared the save the date picture with her hand on my chest. Hell erupted. The first person to text was Brooke. You're getting married. Hold on. Then one more. No invitation. Then one that just exclaimed, wow. I didn't answer. The following morning, my mother phoned 3 times. One voicemail was left. Families don't operate like this, Daniel. Give me a call, please. My father sent an email. Who even does that? I was disappointed with the subject line. I didn't open it. Brooke then sent the big one. In actuality, you're leaving out your entire family following everything that we have done for you. All right. However, if you need something later, don't come weeping. Enjoy becoming your little bohemian girlfriend's spouse. It must be pleasant to feel significant at last. I spent a lot of time looking at that message. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I had nothing to explain for the first time in my life. My Uncle Ray, the one relative I had ever partially trusted, called me a few days after the text storm. A retired electrician. He is my mom's older brother. He has a sharp tongue and a heart that only comes out when you least expect it. I responded mainly out of curiosity, even though we hadn't spoken in a long time. Even though it was mid-afternoon, he spoke in a gravelly voice, as if he was still waking up from slumber. Hey, Danny. Listen, your mom has been telling people that you're having a mental breakdown, and I know I shouldn't get involved. Lila is isolating you or something. Are you all right? I chuckled. In fact, I laughed. Uncle Ray, I'm all right. I'm doing just well. I simply didn't want the folks who made me feel invisible for years to feel like they deserved to sit in the first row at my wedding. A pause occurred. Well, a lengthy one. Excellent. It's about darn time. I blinked. Hold on, which child? Oh, he said. Do you believe I missed it? They would pretend like you were the mailman every Christmas when you showed up with presents for their children. Each time you brought home a female, she felt like a helpless victim because of them. Not to mention the things Brooke said during her wedding. That was inappropriate. I told your mother Daniel isn't the sensitive kind, she remarked. I realized then that she no longer saw you as a person, but rather as an ATM. I wasn't prepared for how hard it hit. Not because I was insulted, but because I had seen someone. All I wanted was a quiet wedding. Silently, I said, "And you will have one," he said. "You deserved it, Danny. I'm not phoning to accuse you. I'm phoning to express my gratitude for finally losing it up there. It's because you stopped allowing them to hurt you, not because you wounded them." I told Lila what he said that evening. "I'm very proud of you," she murmured as she put her arms around me. However, cousins continued to send texts. I hardly knew anybody, not even Brooke's husband or a friend from my mom's church who once inquired as to whether I was the creative one, since supposedly being quiet and unmarried means painting portraits in the attic. Every message tasted different. They all boiled down to the same poisonous brew, whether they were overt outbursts or covert guilt trips. How do I take myself out of their story? The group message then appeared. Sure enough, a full-on nuclear family group text that I hadn't seen any activity in for years suddenly sprung into life. It was initiated by my sister Danny didn't invite his family. He just wanted everyone to know that he was getting married. A screenshot of Lila's save date was supplied. My mother added her voice. "All of us are simply devastated. It seems as though we have forgotten who he is." Then, with his customary emotional grace, my dad. "He has always been self-centered. We simply didn't want to acknowledge it." I spent a good 10 minutes looking over the topic. I knew exactly what not to say, not that I didn't know what to say. Without saying anything, I exited the group chat. It became serious at that point. Unable to give up the attention she believed I had taken, Brooke took to the internet. She shared a picture of herself wearing a bridesmaid dress with a mysterious caption, but she didn't specifically mention us. "Your younger brother organizes a wedding, but he can't remember who raised him. Hashtag a phony family. Not a class." That one gained momentum. Her pals said things like, "You're such a saint, Brooke, and UG families can be the worst." Some even explicitly tag me. Neither did I reply to those. Then, bless her, Lila's mother joined the conversation. She made a remark. Interesting perspective, particularly in light of my observations of Layla and Daniel supporting one another without asking for $1, planning everything themselves, and paying for everything themselves. They appear to be fully aware of who their true family is. Brooke's post received less likes than that remark. This is where things started to become strange. I received a card in the mail 1 week before to the wedding. I instantly recognized the handwriting even though there was no return address. It belonged to my mother. A 3-paragraph letter written in blue ink was found within. It was an emotional guilt trip in the opening paragraph, how I was carried for 9 months by her, how she remained awake with me while I had a fever, how she gave it her all. Every time. A covert reprimand took over the second paragraph. How you cannot choose not to be a part of your family. How I needed to consider the impression I was giving and how I was humiliating myself in front of the wider family. That was the clincher in the last paragraph. Don't bother returning if you marry this girl without inviting your family. When you need assistance, don't call. We won't be there to greet you on Christmas. Daniel actions have repercussions. After carefully folding the letter, I replaced it in the envelope and slipped it into the drawer with the previous RSVP cards. I didn't reveal Layla right immediately because I didn't want her to shoulder the burden I had already spent years learning to handle. Not because I wanted to shield her, I woke up earlier than I thought I would on the morning of the wedding. The sky was clouded in that ideal soft picture style, and the air was cold. In another cabin, Layla was getting dressed, so I had some alone time. There was only the sound of the wind through pine trees and the aroma of a new beginning. No noise, no ringing phone. Then a new number appeared on my phone. I nearly disregarded it, but I felt compelled to respond. Brooke was the one. "I'm just curious as to why," she said right away. "No salutations. Why would you harm us like this?" To me, after everything, I took a seat on the porch's edge. "Do you truly have no idea?" "No, I don't." "You've never done anything more nasty than this, excluding your own family from the invitation. We are embarrassed by you. People are posing inquiries. They want to know whether you're having problems." I let the stillness to linger. Then I added, "You told me I wasn't suitable for a wedding. Brooke, that the limelight wasn't for me. For years, you made me feel insignificant. You're furious that I didn't give you a front row ticket to it now that I'm at last pleased." "You're exaggerating," she said. "It was a joke." "You're so sensitive. My God." It was there. I had heard that term all my life. "I'm not sensitive." Silently, I said I just finished. I hung up before she could continue, and then I switched off my phone. By the time